Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this new webinar series of DEPLOYTOUR Beyond Borders. Here we will discuss and comment on the synergies between tourism data spaces and our tourism data space, DEPLOYTOUR, and other data spaces. Today, we would like to thank SAGE, the Data Space for Sustainable Green Europe, for joining us, as well as all of you for participating. Just a couple of quick reminders. Please mute your microphones. At the end of presentations, you will be able to comment and ask questions openly. And if you don't want to talk, you can use the chat as well. This session will be recorded and uploaded on the DEPLOYTOUR website, and also will be published on our YouTube channel. When it's available, we will share the link to our social media channels, mainly LinkedIn. So please follow us to receive updates and notifications. So now we can start. I would like, first of all, thanks to Mr. Sotirios Kanellopoulos from the European Commission for joining us today and agreeing to participate in the welcome. I want to talk more, so please, Mr. Sotirios, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Olga. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sotirios. I work for the Director General of Environment of the European Commission. I'm very happy to be here with you and looking forward to hear the presentations. I work in a policy unit that has links with digitalization. So what we practically try to do is to help environmental policies to become digital by design. And that's why we are engaged with the data space projects in the Green Deal data space. We think that the Green Deal data space is a great tool for advancing and boosting the implementation of environmental related and climate related technology regulations. But besides that, we've seen also the potential for cooperation between the data spaces. So we have considered in the past that we're still having links at our level with DG Sante on links between the green data space with the health data space. We have had the Simple program being funded by DG Connect. One of the objectives of the Simple program actually is to develop the infrastructure and the tools to allow the cross data space, let's say, links and interoperability. And today I'm very happy to join another kind of table that discusses the links between the green and the tourism data space. Obviously, I can see the links. I mean, as a person, I know how these two things interlink, but I'm really looking forward to hear more insights from you and what actually you have in mind and how you see those two communities interconnected and exchanging data. So I'll stop here. Thank you again for your invitation, and I'll hand over back to you, Olga.
Thank you so much. Now I will give the floor to Lydia Montandon, the coordinator of DEPLOYTOUR. Lydia, when you want.
Okay, so thank you very much. I will share my screen here now for the presentation. Okay. Okay, I understand you can see my presentation.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So welcome everybody to this sixth webinar of the series. I would like also to explain a bit why we have these kind of webinars. So as mentioned by Sotirios as well, tourism is a very transversal sector. So we need the data to flow on not only within the industry, but also across industries, as we need information from transport or location. And in this case, for example, from environment, there is now a policy on tourism that is focusing on sustainability. So it's very important that the two areas connect and we have data from both so that the sustainability can be achieved. And we organize those webinars every 2-3 months. And as Olga mentioned, uploading the recordings, so they are available. And we already have done this with other data spaces, such as language, agriculture, and so on. So we think it's a great way to put in common all our challenges and to discuss those points together. As I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you, Sotirios, and the Commission to participate. And then we'll have the SAGE project on board. And thank you very much for your contribution. Let's go to DEPLOYTOUR. So DEPLOYTOUR is a large data space project, so focusing on the data related to tourism. It's a 3-year project. 43 organizations are participating from 13 countries. And we think that the consortium more or less represents the value chain of the tourism sector. Regarding the objectives, of course, they are aligned with the European policies and the EU data strategy, and it is targeted to boost innovation, competitiveness, and sustainability in the tourism sector. We also think of strengthening the sovereignty in Europe and establishing the governance among the different data spaces. For this, we also count on the collaboration of ministries. We would really like this to be onboarded and adopted on a very high level. So the aim is, in short, is to support stakeholders in the sector by allowing them to share their data in a secure way, so they feel safe in sharing and also in other discovering and accessing them. And we work to empower SMEs and data management and destination management operators to make them beneficiaries and understand well how they can benefit from this data sharing movement. And it's a very complex context. The ecosystem is broad. As you can see, we have several levels of participation. As I mentioned, we have this interministerial committee to work. Already in the project, we have 4 member states, ministries from member states. It's complicated because in tourism, there is no European level policy. And also in the different countries, all the directives, they're not always similar. So it's very different in every country. So we are playing in a very complex, let's say, context. And yeah. So we started in October 2024. And at this point, you can see the arrow. We are at the middle of the project. We have already developed in this area of governance a rule book, which is available on our website, which is the basis for the governance, and working now on the publication of a minimum viable rule book to set the basis. And on the technical side, the first minimum viable data space is available, and we can now start with onboarding the pilots so that they can start sharing the information related to the data sets that they will use for the pilots. Overall, this is the roadmap in a nutshell. As I mentioned, we have been talking to our 5 pilots. We will go back to this later. Each pilot discover what they need, then produce technical specification, analyze them, and produce the minimum viable product that I mentioned, so that now pilots can participate. And we have developed this around 2 technologies, so the EDC connector and the fireware-based connector, so that we already can test interoperability between different connectors, as our intention is to have the wider as possible means and technologies and environment connecting to the data space. So there is also, as I mentioned, the governance framework where we are advancing, and all those activities are intertwined. And talking about governance, our idea is not to reinvent the wheel, but we still need to establish those clear rules for participants. And as our participants are mainly SMEs and DMOs, we really need to ensure that they understand them. So we are working hard in simplifying and providing all the accompanying materials and training to make it as simple as possible. Although, I mean, if we want security, we need to have them. We can just not avoid, but to try to make it as accessible as possible. I'd like to mention that there is a lot of work also in the project around raising awareness, dissemination, and communication activities, but also engaging with stakeholders. And this is the scope of this webinar today, aiming at looking for synergies and complementarities, and especially reinforcing this message that tourism is very transversal, and we need the data from other data spaces and sectors. The project is implementing 5 use case pilots across Europe to show the advantage of this European common data space for tourism. And I will quickly go through, because we will deep dive into one of them with Maurici, but to show a little bit the scope and thematic coverage. So the first one is located in the Alpine region, and the idea is to have this cross-border collaboration with data coming from 2 different countries, Austria and Slovenia, around rural and walking, let's say, or hiking tours in this area. The second one is the cross around mature tourism areas in Spain, connecting different regions from Andalusia to the Balearic Islands and the Canarian Islands. And the idea is to collect data and to understand the impact on climate and to ensure also the sustainability of tourism in those areas, which are somehow overcrowded nowadays due to the success of those regions. The third one is around the MICE sector, so the events and business tourism, and is located in France, in Ile-de-France, near Paris, and is implemented by ONX, who has also a data space around this thematic. The fourth one is located in Greece, in the Syros Island, and is around cultural heritage, and also the problematic of cultural heritage being disturbed or destroyed by the many visits of tourists. So the idea is to find a way to, so of course, always based on data, to improve this situation. And the last one is in Finland and is about using the data and really involving SMEs around the tourism sector to use them in a simplified way so that they can create additional services. So I will end this presentation here. I invite you, of course, to connect with us, and you can follow us, as Olga mentioned, in our LinkedIn and web space. And I give back the floor to you, and I'm here to hear about the SAGE data space and further complementing pilots. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you so much. Well, I think now it's time to know a bit more about our guest, the Green Deal data space. So please, Trine Børve, you are the coordinator of the Green Deal data space. You have the floor for showing us an overview of the data space.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. Yes, thank you. We have a bit of technical problem, so Mark is sharing my presentation. So good morning, everyone. My name is Trine Børve. I'm Senior Project Manager at IDC and Project Coordinator of SAGE. And over the next 5 minutes, I'll give you a quick introduction to what SAGE is, why it matters, and what we are building. So SAGE is a 3-year project running from March 2025 to March 28, co-funded under the Digital Europe program. We have a total budget of 16 million euro, half of which is funded by EC. And we have a consortium of over 40 partners from across Europe. What is important to note is that SAGE doesn't start from scratch. We build directly on the results and communities of great. So we're accelerating from a strong foundation rather than starting from zero. Next one, please, Mark. Thank you. So the mission of SAGE is to establish a fully operational Green Deal data space, or GDDS, that makes environmental and sustainability data across the EU generally accessible, integrated, and usable. So right now, as you know, environmental data in Europe is highly fragmented. It sits in silos across member states, agencies, sectors, and making it difficult to use for policy compliance or innovation. So SAGE addresses this by federating data across sources while ensuring it remains interoperable and trustworthy. So we focus on the 4 strategic pillars of the European Green Deal. So zero pollution, climate adoption, biodiversity, and circular economy action plan. So these aren't abstract goals. They actually directly shape the use cases that we're building. So to make this concrete, SAGE is implementing 10 pilot use cases. These are real-world applications that demonstrate what becomes possible when the right data infrastructure and governance mechanisms are in place. Each use case is led by consortium partners with a deep domain expertise, and together they span all 4 of our Green Deal pillars. So we have an overview of all 10, you can see on this slide. They range from a forest data space supporting sustainable forest management, pollinator monitoring, soil circularity, and a building environment CO2 use case that helps the real estate sector align with CSRD and ESG reporting requirements. We also have textile circularity using digital product passports, zero defect manufacturing, remote sensing for national forest inventories, global environmental exposure, nature and ecosystem services, and air quality and health. No, please go back one more. Thank you. So the breadth of these use cases, it is intentional. It demonstrates that the GDDS infrastructure is cross-sectoral. And Mark, he will walk you through 1 or 2 of these cases in detail later on here. So next one, please. Thank you. At the heart of SAGE is a single vision. It is to build a sustainable Green Deal data space for secure and reliable sharing of the environmental data. So the 4 pillars that you see here, the zero pollution, climate mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity, and circular economy, are where SAGE delivers real impact. So not just as a technology project, but as as the data infrastructure that makes evidence-based green policy and innovation possible at a European scale. So in practical terms, next one, please. In practical terms, what SAGE delivers is a seamless federation of fragmented environmental data, consistent data quality, validation, and interoperable metadata, and enhanced capabilities for analysis, for forecasting, and performance monitoring. And the goal is to turn the raw environmental data into actionable knowledge for both policymakers, businesses, researchers, and citizens. And importantly, the platform and governance structures that we are establishing are designed to continue operating well beyond the project's end in 2028. So that is SAGE in 5 minutes. For more information, please visit our greendealdata.eu website, or you can find us on LinkedIn as SAGE Database. Thank you.
Thank you, Trine. Thank you so much for this nutshell of the presentation of the SAGE. And now I'm going to give the floor to Ms. Maurici Ruiz, professor from the University of Balears, who is going to explain one of the DEPLOYTOUR pilots, as Lydia mentioned before, the one which involved Spain. Maurici, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I am going to share my screen. Sorry, it's here. I can see it. Share. I'm going to share this one. Okay. Sorry. Here. Okay, I think it's okay.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you very much for coming to this presentation. I think this seminar is good to connect these two data spaces initiatives of the European Union related with environment and related with tourists. I think it's so nice to try to know how to combine these two areas because they are very related. Tourism is a cross area of development, and also environment is always including many concepts and variables and elements that must be connected. So all these activities are in a good way with this initiative. So and also thank you very much for coming from Sotirios, from the European Union, in order to be involved in this project, because it's very interesting to connect tourists with other landscapes, like in this case, environment. So today I present the pilot, specifically the pilot 2, DEPLOYTOUR, focused on the resilience and competitiveness of mature tourist destination with a specific focus on the Balearic Island. So we are going, sorry, I have a problem here. Okay. Yes, the main idea behind this pilot is simple. Mature destination already generate large volumes of data, but this data is often, sorry?
Maurici, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but the presentation is stuck in the first slide.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It says the first slide, yeah. The main idea is behind this pilot in simple mature destination, yeah, it's okay. Yes, the question is, we went, the data related with tourism is often fragmented, disconnected, or difficult to transform into actionable decisions. So the DEPLOYTOUR aims is to try to address this using European tourist data space frameworks to connect tourists, environmental data, mobility, accommodation, and destination, and all the management of data related with that. Pilot 2 covers 3 Spain mature tourist destinations: the Canary Island, Andalusia, and the Balearic Island. These are destinations with a strong international visibility, high tourist volumes, and a significant dependency of the visitor economy. The challenge is not simple to attract more tourists. The real challenge is to transform tourist management to access relevant data, combine it, interpret it, correct it, and use it to better services, better policies, and better business decisions. So the focus of this pilot in the Balearics is innovation in mature destination. Specifically, the destination have a strong tourist ecosystem, but they face complex pressure: seasonality, overcrowding, resource consumption, environmental sensitivities, climate risk, and the need to remain competitive in increasing demanding markets. DEPLOYTOUR addressed these pressures through 3 main lines of action. First, by monitoring sustainability and tourist impacts. Second, by providing tailored tools and service for SMEs. And third, by enabling tourist companies to participate actively in the data economy. The first case study inside this pilot 2 is sustainability-based marketing activation, but combining sustainability indicator, destination condition, operational data, and digital marketing data tourist actors. The question is to identify how the destination can try to orient the activities to different visitor segments and social markers for the promotion in the specific points. The second case study, more centered at the Balearic, is the impact monitoring and data-driven destination management. Here, the idea is to create an intermediate light Balearic Island data space capable of consolidating data catalogs such as booking, air and maritime traffic, tourist expenditure, and pressure on points of interest. So, according with the first case study 1, the focus is aligning marketing investment with sustainability goals. The objective is to use data driven visitor profiling to redistribute tourist flows in time and space. The logic is based on a 4-step loop. First, measure sustainability KPIs, help identify saturated zones, periods of pressure, visitor profiles. Second, profile is data is used to understand which visitor segment generate higher value with lower impact. And third, campaign marketing budgets can be directly towards the segments, seasons, and the areas that are better aligned with the destination capacity. And fourth, adjust. Campaign performance data is feedback into the system, allowing target to redefined time. So we are more centered now at the Balearics, and according with the deployment of this case study in the Balearics is the use case number 2, and we have included some examples. This example number 1 is the development of this Balearic Island, Balearic data space, interoperable, sovereign, and capable of aggregating tourist and environmental data sources. The objective is to produce validated sustainability indicators across 3 levels. The first is regional. This includes tourist expenditure, arrivals, employment, economical contribution, pollution, diversity. The second is destination infrastructure. This covers accommodation, capacity versus visitor numbers, waste disposal, land use, cultural elements. And the third is establishment level data, especially hotel data that includes occupancy, energy, water, and others. Another example of our case study is related with the measuring positive tourist impact. Most discussion about tourist sustainability focus on what should be limited: emissions, overcrowding, waste consumption, of pressure over natural areas. There are many focus. This case study adds another perspective. It also measures that what tourists contributes positively for the Balearic Island. In data terms, positive impacts includes economic multiplier, how tourists expanding reach over local SMEs, guides, restaurants, artisans, and not only for large hotel chains. It also includes employment quality, cultural vitality, public services, and infrastructure. Another focus of our case study 2 is related with the calculate emissions. Since the introduction of corporate sustainable reporting directive, large companies are required to disclose supply chain emissions for major tour operators. This means quantify carbon emissions linked with accommodation, flights, and ground transport and destination level. So in this case, the data space can support the calculation by combining several types of data: the hotel data, the airports and port authority data, public transport, energy, and so on. So we try to include all these elements into our case study. And another is related another example is related with the climate emergency, heat waves and floods and residents. The Balearic Islands are increasing exposure to climate risk, extreme heat, heavy rainfall, flash floods, and others. For destination that receives more than 15 million visitors during a concentrated seasons, these risks are not abstract, and we need to try to give some tools in order to take decisions related with these things. So it's clear that we have many points of common with the data space of Green Deal, because the Pilot 2 contributes to European Green Deal, connecting digital transformation with sustainability through data sharing between public and private actors. Our pilots help destination to use resources more efficiently, reduce environmental pressures for tourist concentration, and make decisions based on evidence rather than assumption. It supports greener mobility, a smarter visitor flow, lower impact tourist strategies, and a stronger territorial resilience. The key message is that the Pilot 2 makes tourist destination more competitive while keeping them aligned with the climate and environmental priorities. So it's clear that it contributes, our pilot contributes with the principles of these green pills: zero pollution, climate adaptation, biodiversity strategy, circular economy. And the key message of DEPLOYTOUR Pilot 2 does not only contribute to tourist digitalization, it also creates the data conditions needed for climate, environmental, and territorial policy implementation. So now we are working in this area. The final message for that pilot that is we are moving to the implementation is that stakeholders have been implemented and engaged. The data product offering has been more or less defined. We are including many sources actively, and the data sources are starting to be analyzed and structured, and there is a good coordination with other work package of the project. So I think that, or we think that the Balearic Island pilot demonstrates how mature destination can use data to become more competitive, more sustainable, and more residents. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Maurici, for this wonderful presentation. Well, synergies and links between both data spaces are real clear at this point. Okay, now I think it's time to know it more about one of the SAGE pilots. So please, Dietrich, you have the floor to tell us something else about one of your pilots.
Thanks very much, Olga. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, so let me share if I can do that. It's always the hardest part.
Yep.
Okay, so I've misspelled my own name for those of you who are watching closely. Anyway, I'm Mark Dietrich. I'm the technical coordinator of SAGE. I'm going to talk about a number of our use cases and explore the synergies that they have with the European tourism data space. So first, the use cases that are the most relevant to tourism, I would say, are three of them that Trine had described before: our global environmental exposure and air quality and health use cases, which are quite similar. They have slightly different focuses and slightly different data sources, and also our nature and ecosystem services use case. So let me talk about those in a bit. So for global environmental exposure and air quality and health, what we will be doing in SAGE is collecting, or these use cases will be collecting environmental indicators across a great many dimensions. These will be filtered by location. They can be filtered by location, much like local weather forecasts are today, as well as air quality indices. And these can be available and accessed by DEPLOYTOUR, by the ETDS. And these indicators could include extreme temperatures, particulate and chemical pollution, coastal conditions from ocean and marine data sets, as well as hazard risks such as wildfires and floods. And Maurici and Olga have both described quite a lot of points in which these kinds of data can be integrated. And I would note that pilots 1, 2, and 4 are ready-made to accept this kind of data. This is the DEPLOYTOUR's pilots 1, 2, and 4 in the Alps, in the Alpine regions, in Spain, as well as in Greece. Have already mentioned the fact that they want to absorb this type of information, so we can package that from our two use cases to provide that to DEPLOYTOUR and to these pilots. I'd like to also highlight another use case where the flow of information would work in the other way. So you can imagine across all of your use cases and your pilots, the ability of geolocating various tourist likes as well as operators' financial indicators to provide validated economic values for specific natural features. So let's say somebody in the Balearics is saying, "Oh, we really love these vineyards, or we love these olive groves. We got huge likes," or the people who are the operators can say, we get dozens of tourists every year who come specifically to visit these olive groves or to specifically to visit these vineyards. This is part of their itineraries, and that translates into value for us as a hotel operator or as a tour operator. And so we can put a real number, a real euro value to this value, and that in turn can be used by our use case, the natural capital and ecosystem service use case, where we have various commercial and industrial operators saying, okay, we have a refinery, or we have some sort of a factory in a location, and it is near this vineyard, and it is near these olive groves. And if we do not manage the operation of our factory correctly, we will damage the vineyard, we will damage the olive groves, and so this has a negative effect on the environment, and that's caused by us. So we want to make sure we manage our factory and be stewards of the climate around our factory in a way that benefits these areas and does not damage them. So that's a reverse flow of information that is very, very realistic in between our two different data spaces. I'd like to also explore one where it's a little more complicated, a few more moving parts. So first, Trine mentioned 4 pillars of the Green Deal action plan: zero pollution, biodiversity, climate adaptation, and the circular economy. There are actually other pillars, and 2 of them are agriculture and energy. And agriculture has its own data space called SEEDS, the Common European Agricultural Data Space. And there's also an energy data space called Insieme, which, by the way, also is tapped into in various of your pilots in terms of energy costs. But for SEEDS, we might create a 2-part synergy where environmental data from SAGE is processed and shared with the SEEDS, the agricultural data space. They in turn convert this data into crop life cycle projections for specific species like grapes, olives, other kinds of things that may be interesting from a tourism standpoint. When will, let's say in Andalusia, we will be harvesting the olives, or we'll be doing some spraying for some reason for pests. Therefore, we don't want to have tourists there because we're going to be spraying with some kind of anti-pesticide. I won't say pesticide, but an anti-pest materials. It might be naturally based. But conversely, when would be good times for people to visit this vineyard or this olive grove? SEEDS can then share this data with DEPLOYTOUR to apply or benefit specific agricultural operators who are thinking about agritourism. So if you have a vineyard and you're interested in having people visit your vineyard when you are harvesting the grapes and doing this process, maybe tourists want to participate in this process and actually pick the grapes or something like that. You have these kinds of opportunities because you know when, based on the environmental data and the climate data, when this will happen, and therefore the tourist visit can be scheduled and optimal times can be identified. It's a little more complicated, a few more moving parts, but that's the kind of thing that becomes possible when we enable the synergies between data spaces and we make it possible to use the data. I'd now like to take one example, which is a different use case, which is not quite so directly involved with tourism, but I have a few more details that I can provide there, which is on forest management. The forest data space is, it's not a real data space. It does operate in this way, but it's going to be a use case within SAGE. And forest management, this is where we are advising, or our use case sponsor is advising the private landholders about how they should manage their privately owned forest. And there are lots of people like this. There are lots of private forest owners across Europe, and they all would benefit from this kind of value-added service. The impact of climate change is, to make it clear, it's rather obvious. So increasing wildfires obviously creates an opportunity or a situation which might completely obliterate this private owner's entire crop, their entire production. Increasing infestations, the expansion of various kinds of pests can have the same impact. And finally, increasing drought, lack of water, lack of rainfall can impact tree health and growth. So those are the direct impacts on the bottom line for that forest holder. And therefore, the forest management use case looks to combine data to allow them to better manage their private holding. So how does it, well, let me give you an example. This is an extract from a study that was recently published in Science from a number of European specialists and experts in this area, and they forecast across all of Europe the impact of different climate change models. So the 2.6, the 4.5, and the 8.5 are the expectation of degrees Celsius above the historical numbers. We're right now under the Kyoto protocols, we're trying to get to 1.5. We think we're going to exceed that. But the climate scientists are saying, well, what if it goes to 2.6 degrees over these past averages, or 4.5 degrees over past averages, or 8.5 degrees over past averages? What will happen to the specific impacts of fire, of bark infestations, the bark beetles, as well as the possibility of wind damage, what they call wind throw when you're in the forest business. And you can see that in general, the wind throw is about the same, but the fire and the bark beetle can substantially increase based on these different climate change issues. So the challenge here is, how do we convert this sort of pan-European data to specific data for a specific location? So let me talk about how we do that. So this is a complicated diagram. We'll provide the slides. You're welcome to look at that. On the far left, you have a number of blue ovals, and this is publicly available data: Sentinel-2 satellite data, LiDAR data, leaf area index data, tree species maps, and species distribution models. This is all public domain, open data that's available. Up at the very top left, you have private forest stand data. This is private data. So this is where the data space comes in providing the data sovereignty and the data control to that private forest owner to make sure that their private data is not shared. For the open data, the blue data, there are processes where we manage and transform the data that's coming in from these open data sources, and we're creating information that can be combined. So I won't get into the details, but the top level is canopy height processing. This is the height of the trees. The second one down is leaf area index processing. This is the density of the leaves that are on the trees. And the bottom one is species composition. And so this is it all birch trees? Is it all eucalyptus? Is it all pine trees of various kinds? What is the mix of species? You process this data and you end up with data sets that can be combined. And so in the middle on the right, combined 3 layers, we're bringing all this data into a very complicated, complex data set that can then be analyzed. So then we introduce the private forest stand data, and we look up where in this big data set we can find that particular plot of land for this private forest holder. And we can determine what species they have, what their circumstances are, and we can make very precise estimates of what their future looks like. In other words, what will climate change do to this particular piece of land? And this example of how we translate large-scale global data and bring it down to the local level, to the level of a particular economic operator, a tourist operator, a farm, a particular land holding. This is the example that we are seeing in all of these different use cases in your example and in our use cases. So this is simply an illustration of how we translate complicated data into actionable data that is available to individual owners, business managers, et cetera, so that they can make smart decisions. So that's the approach that we're taking. I'm just exploring that in detail. You can look at it in more detail, but I've explored the points of synergy, and that's all I have to say. So happy to answer any questions, and I'm hoping we'll have a chance for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your interesting presentation. Thank you, all of you. And now it's time for those who would like to ask a question or simply make a comment or an observation. Please don't be shy. We are in family. Raise your hands and participate. If you don't want to talk, you can use the chat too. So, who wants to start? Please, Mark.
So very quickly, one of your pilots, pilot number 4 in the Île-de-France. No, I'm sorry, in Greece. It refers to cultural heritage artifacts, and I was just curious. You didn't mention, but are you making the connection with Oia Praiana, the cultural heritage data space, where that information is available?
Absolutely. They are partners of the project. So yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good.
And I take the advantage because when you showed the three use cases that were more connected to DeployTour, is exactly when I saw Trine's slide, I exactly identified also those three as the ones that are really interesting for connection with DeployTour. Because and I really liked the forest management. It makes a lot of sense. In the end, it's also very true that we need to protect the tourism, and more there are some events, and more if we can prevent, and if of course it creates a better experience. Maybe you will lose your vacation because there is an event or a fire, but at least you feel safe, and maybe you can change your plans and go next year or whatever, but at least you are informed, and you don't fall into dangerous situation. So yeah, that was all from my side, I think.
Okay.
I like the comment, the connection between seeds, Sage and DeployTour. Effectively, with the previous webinar we had with seeds, and we think there is a great connection between agriculture and agriculture depends a lot on environmental data. So really the connection here, I think we need to further explore how we can do something there.
For sure.
Yes. We are taking note of next activity. Okay, we have a message in the chat. Have you identified, partnered with the service providers of these integrated data services, especially beyond project lifetime? And what's the readiness of the local companies to pay for these integrated products and knowledge? I don't know. I understand this question is for both pilot cases. Am I right?
I can address that if you'd like. So the norm, so our 10 use cases, in every case, we have in fact included the actors or partners who would be doing the data analysis to create the integrated data that we're talking about. The basic structure of Sage is that we intend to provide a common platform that allows these 10 use cases and many more future use cases to participate in Sage and use it as a platform to achieve their business objectives. So the people who have joined Sage as partners in the use cases are the people who are doing this work. They are the partners, they are the service providers, they are creating the integrated data services that we mentioned. So to some extent, it's not our job. We're not selling their integrated data services. We're not selling their opportunities. We're enabling them to do exactly that. The next point is, or next 2 points are the willingness to pay and what happens after the end of the project. Very good questions. For Sage as a whole, our mandate is to create a business model and a sustainable plan that will allow the activity to continue past the end of the project. So we are explicitly looking at the governance model, the business model, what kind of operating entities do we need, what kind of payments are necessary, so that we can then turn around to those existing partners in our use cases and say, okay, we've thought about this. We think that for the textile use case, it will need to pay Sage. If it's a sort of an independent entity or a consortium, it will need to pay Sage for the platform services, the data space platform services that we provide, 5 euros a month, 5 million euros a month. I don't know what the number is, but we hope it will be an affordable number and something that they can include in their business planning to say, as we develop the textile use case, we would need to find a way to pay this money. In the case of forest management in particular, the partner that's coming to the table with this capability, who is providing this and creating these integrated data services, they already have a business model where they are selling value-added services to private forest holders. So we're making it easier for them to deliver that service, lower cost, they already have a price point that they know that forest holders will pay. So they know what the market will bear in terms of the pricing. So they can then put that into their input and say, that's our customer. And in turn, the forest data space, become our customer. We charge them kind of like a cloud provider, again, that 5 million euros a month or the 5 euros a month, and they decide whether that works for them. And we obviously want that to work. So that's an open question. We're working on it. By the time we reach close to the end of the project, we expect to have a detailed plan, and our use cases will have validated that plan by saying, yes, we can afford that. We can make our money, we can pay you, and we will continue past the end of the project.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Who wants to answer? Maurici, please.
Yes, I think that this is a very good, interesting question. I have the same opinion than you, Mark. I think that at the moment it's quite difficult to define who are going to be the providers, the real data providers. What are going to be the real data product that we are going to use in these data spaces? And then it's also another question to analyze how can develop many services according with this data in order to be included into the data space, like an added value. I think that the first consumers in terms of services, the construction of services, to build services, I think the academia are very interested to do this thing, maybe not in terms of get phones related with that, but yes, in terms of the development of knowledge, because we will have the opportunity to get many data, information related with environment, and also tourism, and also agriculture, many information to be analyzed, many information to be included in many applications. So I think also at the Balearic Islands, we have a very good ecosystem of technologies, companies that are working with tourist data. And I think that it not are going to be very difficult that they start to have interest to use this data for many activities, especially related with the consume of resources because we have a very limited resources in this island environment. And then I think that, yes, it's open a good market, a good possibilities in this new marketplace of data, that especially in this ecosystem of environment and tourists could be a very interesting thing. Another question that we can think about, because we have the opportunity now to try to build these data spaces, is how to establish the real synergies between them. Because I know that, for example, the people that have a company and they have many data that could be useful in many services, many data spaces, not only from the tourists, but also it could be included in the environment. So maybe it's necessary with our projects try to define what kind of federated data spaces we want to create in order to be connected all the time together, in order to facilitate the work for the stakeholders to be involved in the data space and not to repeat the activities for onboarding for many data spaces and giving a lot of data. So I think it could be, we have these two projects. This is really a challenge. Try to connect these two data spaces in a federated system. I think probably the technology has been solved, or we are going to work together. I'm sure that it could be necessary to work in this field in order to this way. And then I think the question could be the data when a provider is proposing the data for the data space, specifically data space, Europe data space or national data space. It could be connected with other data spaces in a federated way in order to take the possibility to look for the catalogs and to get data and automatically to do the operation of sign agreements between them to get information, and this could open a good possibility to share data and to get added value for all this data. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maurici. Well, we have another question in the chat. Is SAGE working together or is aligned with Green Transition Information Factory, a service by ESA? And Mark already has the answer. No, but they should. Okay. Anything else?
Well, I'm happy to. I'd like to
Yes.
make one point for everybody in this, and that is that you know, the whole the universe of companies and organizations and initiatives, projects that are working in the Green Deal area is giant. It's massive. And there's no way for us to involve every single one of those. And frankly, that's the same for DEPLOYTOUR. I mean, you have obviously thousands, hundreds of thousands of operators of hotels, of tourist services, et cetera, transport services. So it's impossible for you to get everybody involved. And the same is true for us. But what we have done actively in SAGE is to design a platform that allows for the onboarding of new use cases as we go along. So we're explicitly designing this so that, I mean, you have your 5 pilots, and I sense from what I see there are a little bit of differences in the technical stack and some of the approaches that are being taken. But our approach is to create one platform that is interoperable across the use cases. And we're creating separate governance layers for the different use cases. We're allowing for some variation in technology, but fundamentally we're pushing for a common technical capability, which by definition is going to help with interoperability. So within the use cases, these 10 use cases, they will have their little clusters. And Maurici mentioned the light data space in use case 2 of pilot 2. And that's specifically the kind of thing that we're doing across the SAGE data space, is to create these kinds of individual light data spaces where people can pursue the objectives of the use case building on the platform of SAGE. Based on that, we are actively reaching out and developing a list of use cases from other projects. In fact, I mentioned this earlier in the chat to Sotirios. On Tuesday, there was a meeting in Brussels where I attended, which was a presentation of the Green Deal project office from the Horizon Europe. And there were 73 projects represented there, all of which had done work in Green Deal stuff. Now, many of them are, pouring sand into marshes behind a beach to change the coast. So that's not something that SAGE can help with. But there are a lot of them that we're working with data, that we're sharing data, that we're creating new data products. And that's exactly the kind of thing that SAGE can help with on an ongoing basis. So we're having active discussions with those kinds of projects to say, how can you move? For example, there was one on zero food waste. They have a zero food waste data space, which is now dormant because the project is over. But that would be the perfect sort of thing to be a use case within SAGE, to have its own little governance framework, have its own little set of stakeholders working within SAGE to continue to achieve the objectives of the Zero Food Waste project after the end of that project. So SAGE would continue to support that. We're designing a sustainable platform that allows them to rely on us, and that's a win-win for everybody. So that's the approach that we're taking.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, it's time. We have finished on time. Lydia, if you want to say some words to close this interesting webinar, for sure, please.
It's an honor for me. I would like first to thank you all participants, and I hope that we can really continue working. It's fresh, and let's say we just get to know each other, but I know that we have plans to continue with more technical discussions on one side, and little by little, it's true that now we are starting with our pilot, so we are focused on our project, but towards working. And as you mentioned, we need to work on this sustainability and business model and business planning. This is so important now, from now on, because projects will be ending, and the worst is that they stay, as you say, without a continuation. So either a common project or with the market, it should continue. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you all, and yes, have a nice continuation of day.